Hey, it's Dave Brown here, host of Now with Dave Brown on AMI. Check out this latest highlight from the show. International Albinism Awareness Day, broadcasting live from Halifax, Nova Scotia at the Lighthouse Performing Arts Centre. A big thank you to the gang here lending a hand, trying to bring as much perspective from the community today as possible. Of course, I am part of the albinism community. So is the next guest. You've heard from Garth Mullins a couple times over the past few months, discussing some of the pressing issues facing drug users in British Columbia. Garth does a lot of work with the Vancouver area network of drug users. He's also the host of the Crackdown podcast and a member of the community. Hey Garth, nice to chat with you today. Thank you for getting up early there on the West Coast.
Oh, thanks for having me, Dave, and thanks for the broadcast today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to talk about people's journey with albinism and their own life experiences. What's your personal journey been like? And I'm happy to chime in here a little bit too as we go through this, but how would you describe your personal journey with albinism?
Well, I mean, have been some challenges. I won't try to paper over it, but also some good things. When I was coming up, when I was young, I did not have an easy time of it at school. I think a lot of us were in that situation. Kids make fun of you and give you nicknames, but also I think the teachers didn't really understand that I couldn't see the blackboard or the text or anything. So I found up thinking, I wound up thinking that I was not, that I was a pretty dumb kid. And also, the people who were, one of the people who was taking care of me when my parents weren't around was not the kind of person who should be around kids. So that sort of led me into substance use a little bit, So I had a heroin habit for quite a few years, and that's what brought me to a lot of work trying to protect people from overdose out here in British Columbia. But also, albinism and having really low eyesight meant that I was kind of always attracted to audio, like radio and music and that sort of stuff, and it really opened up a world to me, and I still love the music and radio and that sort of thing. So I feel like there's good and bad.
Yeah, I find that to be relatable. I was sharing some stories about how I was bullied in elementary school and high school as well from people just because I was different, and there was something you identified there about teachers, because one of the things about albinism and legal blindness is it's almost like you're living two different lives. You can sort of present as someone who doesn't have a disability, but it can be really difficult to explain to someone what legal blindness is, what low vision is, vision impairment is, whatever descriptor you want to use there. It can be really difficult to make people understand, yes, I have a disability, even if I don't always present as having a disability.
Yeah, definitely. 100% that happened. I'd say, I have really low vision. They say, oh yeah, well, I can barely see without my glasses too. And I say, no, this is different. I really can't see it. I've just taken to saying I'm blind, right? Because the way the CNIB and so forth describes blindness is people with some eyesight too. And so I do have a little bit. And when I was little, I didn't get into Braille or having a white cane or a dog or anything, although turns out those things might have been helpful. But, I was a kid in Yellowknife and they didn't know about that stuff back in the day. So I just tried to make do, and with the bullying and everything, you do try to fake it a little bit. And I certainly did. I never used to like talking about it or anything like that. In fact, the word albino, it just still rings like an insult in my ears. But I feel a lot more comfortable now than when I was a kid. And also, I never met anybody with albinism, anybody else, until just a few years ago. So it was, you kind of come up with your own experience, like you're in this little capsule in space, and you're not getting to really know a community.
Yeah, and even if you do maybe encounter one out in the wild in the general world, you're not exactly going to go up and approach them and say, hey, I think you and I have something in common.
Yeah, exactly.
It's certainly a bit of an odd social interaction. Garth, you talked about the way that audio and radio ended up being an escape for you. And once again, you and I find a similarity here, because when I was 9 or 10 years old for my birthday, my parents gave me a Sony Walkman. And I used to fall asleep at night listening to CJAD and CIQC AM radio stations in Montreal. And I also ended up falling in love with the art form. Why did you fall in love with it? What are some of your earliest memories of audio and radio?
When I was 10, my grandfather gave me a shortwave radio. He worked in a radio repair store, and he was a radar technician in World War II in the RCAF, and so he was always into that stuff. He gave me a shortwave radio, and him and my dad sort of threw a wire over top of a tree in a neighbor's yard, and I could pull in signals from all over the world, and I just started listening to radio from everywhere. And suddenly I realized, my world as a 10-year-old blind kid was pretty small, and that just expanded it hugely. And you heard perspectives from everywhere, but I also heard these like lonely ham radio operators in Antarctic research stations or the desert or something like that. And I just thought, I'm not so alone. There's all these kind of like weirdos out there like me, doing this weird stuff. And I thought, man, that would be cool to broadcast someday. It'd be cool to be able to be on the other end of the mic. But just listening when I was a kid was a great escape.
What do you like about doing a podcast now? What do you enjoy about it?
Well, I like the interviewing. I like editing and putting it together. To kind of create a story. I like making the music for it. It's just it feels good. Before I did podcasts, I made radio documentaries for CBC, and in fact, the first one I made for Ideas, a CBC program that's been running for about 50 years, was an hour-long documentary on albinism. You can still find it online. It's called The Imaginary Albino, and it kind of covered lots of struggles of what people with albinism face all over the world. And of course, people in about 30 countries, particularly in East Africa, are facing a really bleak situation of being, attacked, hunted, even murdered, because there's this pernicious myth that our body parts can bring good fortune. And so our bodies are worth like $75,000 US, which is a lot of money, So
Yeah.
That's how I actually met other people with albinism, is making that documentary. I went to a conference of us in North America, and me and my partner went there, and I walked into the room, and suddenly I was lost to her. She can always find me really easy. I'm 6'4". I got the lighthouse hair. And then all the other people in the room looked like that, and I was she couldn't find me, and suddenly I was in the majority, and I was like, oh, is this what it feels like to be just like other people out in the world, that you don't stand out in the same way? So, I mean, that's what radio brought me. It brought me liberation and self-awareness and self-actualization. I mean, it's been incredible. And so I learned that as a drug user, also making the podcast. I learned to feel less ashamed about my past, about being a heroin user for many years. And, I got to interview other people, but I also got to tell my own story a little bit. And so that was, I don't know, it was just, radio's given a lot to me.
It's a reminder that communication is a bond that brings us together. There's just no doubt about it. And radio is so intimate. Radio and podcasting is so intimate in the way that it brings us together. Garth, I want to ask you a couple questions about, I don't know, I'd call this sort of the practical but also playful side of living with albinism in terms of skin protection and eye protection. Certainly the rates of skin cancer are higher for people within the community, but we all have our own ways of adapting. I'm curious some of the steps that you take in regards to taking care of your skin.
Well,
what do you got there?
I know that probably freaks you out a little bit, having someone disappear, but there's one of them right there.
So Garth, I can't see the screen right now. I don't have a confidence monitor.
Sorry.
What do you have there?
I put a big cowboy hat on my head to just show you what I'm trying to do is keep the sun off me at all costs. And that's really a big struggle, right? I just don't go out in the bright noonday sun. I live in a place like Vancouver also, which is cloudy and rainy a lot. So I really like the rain and the shade. And I'm like you, I pretty much catch on fire in direct sunlight. So I try to avoid it. I use SPF 5000 or whatever when it's necessary, and a lot of sunglasses. But you know, I I I tried not to when I was younger. I tried not to let it affect anything that I did. I was just like, I'll just do exactly what I want to do. But now I realized I'm actually more comfortable, when the light is less in the evening or early morning, when the sun isn't beaming down on me and making me worry about, getting skin cancer or whatever.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's what
yeah.
I do is I wear a big hat and also try to stay out of the sun.
Have you found sunglasses that work for you yet? Have you found a style of sunglasses that scratches the itch?
Oh yeah, I have those polarized ones, but they're like parasols or something. I just if you have albinism, you're gonna wear sunglasses a lot, so get a cool pair that works for you. Like that's or a few.
Yeah, maybe that's one of the areas where I say I'll spend a couple extra dollars for the sake of an investment. And then for whatever reason, they don't come with
Absolutely.
me to Halifax because I don't want to lose them while I'm out on the road. Garth, I want to give you one more chance to do a plug on the way out here, not just for the Crackdown podcast, but you're also a musician. You're in a band called Low Dead Space. You've only got about a minute here, but talk about your work in the music world.
Well, I've been, playing in local bands for, I don't know, since I was really young, since I was a teenager, and I play guitar and sing, and I just, it's another form of audio expression, and I really like it. You get bright lights shone on you on the stage, so I just try to make sure I know right where the edge of the stage is, so I don't walk off it, and then just give her and just play the music. We've played punk and rock and ska and that sort of thing, and mostly it's about human rights and the underdog. That's what albinism taught me is like, you got to stand with the underdog. If people are getting the short end of the stick, there are people, and that's what we ought to do. Solidarity with other people who are having trouble. So that's what my podcasting and radio and music is about.
Garth, thank you for this. It's always such a blast catching up and chatting with you. Don't be a stranger. Let's connect again down the road.
Thanks a lot, Dave, and thanks for doing the broadcast today. I really, I think it's great, and all what you do is fantastic. So thanks a lot.
Oh, the appreciation is all around. Thank you for taking the time. That's Garth Mullins, host of the Crackdown podcast. On the way to break, here is a song called Die in Vancouver by Garth's band, Low Dead Space. This is Now with Dave Brown on AMI-TV.
I don't want to die in Vancouver. I don't want to die in Vancouver. I don't want to die in Vancouver. I don't want to die.
Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI TV or download the podcasts wherever you listen.